It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen and friends. This is the Voice of Reason podcast. It is August 15th, the great year of 2023. My name is Sandra Bullock, and as always, I am joined alongside my two co-hosts, Mr. Andrew Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Let's just.
I should have changed my name to Tim McGraw.
Sandra Bullock,
I've
Tim
missed
McGraw, yeah, you know, and I
Missed my shot.
when Sean came into the video, he put on, and it actually, if you can, I don't know if I can show this on my phone or not, but it says right there next to his name. You can't really see it, but it says Sandra Bullock there. So, I was like, oh, there you go. Oh, hey, man, we celebrated the old Big 4-9 this weekend, so that was a lot of fun. Thank you for the birthday wishes there, and of
course. What'd you do for celebrating the Big 4-9?
Me and the kids went out fishing, caught some fish, and strangest thing, while I was out there fishing, a former student drives by, and he stops by and talks to me, and he says, "Hey, you want this disc golf thing?" And it's one of these big, heavy steel. I mean, it's an actual practice basket. It's official. I was like, "For free?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah." So brought that home, and so we've been messing with that and everything, and that was really cool. And then we went out to the old Dingers and partied it up. And as always on a Friday night, Dingers was just packed to the gills, and so.
It always is.
Always is. That good for all those of our friends who live in the Pike County area. Please go to McDingers, even though they're not an official sponsor. But
I'll tell you what they need to do. They need to bring back. Didn't they used to have Dogtown Pizza? Their pizza's not the same. At least it wasn't the last time I was there. I'm not okay with it.
Well, I haven't had their pizza in forever, so.
But I don't live there, so don't.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
No, but so no, that was my weekend, and then. I was surprised with some Eric Clapton tickets in September. So he's coming to St. Louis in September, and I'm going
That's going to be such a good show. Who's he playing with?
I have no idea. I haven't looked up anything about the show yet. I don't know who's opening for him. Last time I saw him back in 2002. And he did so the show itself, the entire concert was close to 5 hours long. He did a 3-hour set on his own. So.
Just on like an acoustic guitar?
He did, well, that was part, so he did like all of his stuff from he kind of divided up into sections. So he did the first part like Cream, and he did a lot of Cream songs and Derek and the Domino songs and all of his old stuff. Then he did an acoustic set with the guys who sing in "Oh Brother Where Art Thou." I think they're called Mississippi Blind Boys or whatever they were. But he did
something like that.
He did a set with them, which was pretty cool. And then he did his newer stuff, part acoustic, and then he did the rest of it just plugged in, and it was. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in that. And I saw him in Nashville when I saw him last time, and you could have heard a pin drop in that place. So, yep, I'm looking forward to that. That's a great birthday present. So, how about you boys?
That's great. You deserve it.
What did you boys do this weekend?
I worked on the room, so I pulled up all the carpet and all that stuff off the floor, and then found that I had quite a bit of damage to the concrete.
Ooh.
So once I pulled all that up, Saturday was just patching. Saturday I was patching the floor. Had to go to Home Depot about 4 times that day to get different types of Quikrete for, cracks and chips and all that stuff. And then Sunday, what did I do Sunday? I think both days I spent like patching up that floor, and then Monday I grinded it because it wasn't like flat.
Yep.
I screwed up big time with that. I had the worst headache in the world from that. I could taste that shit in my mouth. Danny was yelling at me because like the house is like getting all smoked up with the dust and stuff. It was
Yeah. Yep.
just a nightmare. So today I told you guys I've been painting since I got home. I got all the primer up on the rest of the walls. Hopefully start throwing some blue up there and have all the paint finished by Friday and then throw the floor in the weekend and be
Fantastic.
done with it.
How's
On to the next one.
how's dad life in Los Angeles going?
Dad life in Los Angeles is good. It's busy. Kind of I went back to work full time at the warehouse this past week, which has been good, been busy. Jam started school. So that's been crazy. Sending your girl off to strangers, what it feels like, and trusting in the teachers and hoping that they
So is this the
steer her in the right direction.
Is this the LA public schools or is this?
Yes. Yeah, because I'm not going to pay, my fucking college tuition to send my daughter to yuppie, elementary. So
Yuppie elementary.
but the good thing, the interesting fact is, so where we're at in West Hollywood, you would think with LA schools, it being a really large school, there being a lot of people. Honestly, I'm not making this up. The school that we're at in West Hollywood has very much like a very small school feel.
Really?
There are less than 20 kids in my daughter's class.
That's awesome.
There's a teacher and an aide at all times in the class, at least one aide with the teacher, which is great. And so one thing about LA Unified School District, I think it's called, that's different compared to like where we were in Missouri. So LA schools don't have PE, they don't have music classes, they don't have any of that stuff. There's a lot of things they don't have. But however, at the school that my daughter's at, they do. So she does have a PE teacher in class, and like once a week they get instruments out and have like an actual music class for the kids. And those are not things that every school district has. So
that's good.
We are kind of really spoiled with what we have here for her school. So that's good. But other than that, no, new baby's doing good. The better half is doing good. She's still definitely the better than me half. So she's rebounded well.
That's good.
After giving birth. The baby is definitely mine though, and the poor girl unfortunately looks just like me, and all she does is
hold on a second. Wait a minute.
And cry and poop.
There you go. Make sure that the baby's definitely yours. There you go.
She poops about 10 times a day, which is about
that definitely
5 times shy of my record from last week. So she's growing like a weed.
Well, great. Oh my goodness. Well, tonight's topic, we called it the Blindside. Obviously, anything that deals with adoption or anything in that light always gears me up, kind of keys me up. For those who don't know, if you've been living in a cave for the last, I don't know, when did that movie even come out? Was that
2008, I think. 2008 or 2009. I think Sandra Bullock won the Oscar 2009.
Yeah, she won, yeah. And so the idea was Michael Orr filed suit Monday, and I don't know where it was at what court or what state. I'm thinking it's Memphis. I'm thinking, right? Shelby County Court. Yeah, Shelby County Court, Tennessee. So that's Memphis. And so basically, Michael Orr is filing suit against Leanne and Sean Toohey, which was played by Sandra Bullock and country music star
Tim McGraw.
Thank you. And they basically, this is just straight, I'll read this straight from the suit. It said the lie of Michael's adoption is one which co-conservators Leanne Toohey and Sean Toohey have enriched themselves at the expense of their ward, the undersigned Michael Orr. So basically what happened was, for 20th Century Fox, the Toohey family received a contract price of $225,000 and 2.5% of the film's net proceeds, which the film has grossed over $300 million. $200,000 donation was made to Leanne Tui's charitable foundation, and Orr claims that he did not get a dime from the film. He's filing basically that they can't use his name anymore, and that he was not even aware of. He thought he was adopted, and not, this whole conservatorship thing. And so some of the research that I did on this. So for those of you who don't know, so adoption, you can adopt anytime from birth to 18. Once a child in the United States, once a child reaches the age of 18, they can't be adopted. Now, there are a lot of legalese things that you can do. They can, you can gain conservatorship, which is, you are, for lack of a better word, you're a guardian for that person, and you manage that person's, you manage everything about their life. Michael Orr was a ward of the state of Tennessee from the age of 11. And then he enrolled in Briarcrest Christian School in 2002. Now, just for the record, Orr says, well, I don't remember signing a conservatorship. Well, so doing some research on how, and I wasn't really sure on how a conservatorship worked. What a conservatorship, how it works is the court constantly, and this is from a civil attorney. I was reading some of her comments on this. A civil attorney had said that the way a conservatorship works is you file that with a court, and the court, it's almost like a yearly thing that you have to, they have to check the condition of saying, okay, how's things going? How's this going? How's this going? And usually a conservatorship cannot go past the age of 25. Now, some of the allegations that were made by Michael Orr. Number one, well, I didn't know that I signed. I don't ever remember signing a conservatorship, which he could have signed at age 18. He's a legal adult, and he could have signed it. And he said, I don't remember signing that. I never made any money from the film. And so, then you go and you look at so Sean Tui, who's the dad, he released a statement today who basically said, he said, it's upsetting to think that we would make any money off of our children, but we're going to love Michael at 37 just like we loved him at 16. His adopted brother, SJ, was Sean Jr., was on he did I guess it was this morning, he did a podcast on Barstool, and Barstool basically said, or this kid, SJ said, he's got a record of, he's tried this before, and he couldn't find an attorney to represent him. And, he says it stinks that it'll play out on the public stage. But, he said that Orr had done this before. He'd asked for money from the family around 2021. I think it's a sad, a couple of ways I want to look at this tonight. And as a person who's adopted, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, and even, parents of, one parent who's married another parent, and, who's not the real mother or the real father, and they've, the one, like, say, somebody's given up on, they don't have any contact with the kids whatsoever, and they go to adopt, and there's a lot of things that you have to jump through, and a lot of things that you have to check all your boxes are. Michael Orr was, and I mean, Michael Orr claims that the Blindside was, over dramatized, but he was, his mom was a drug addict at age 11, and he was going from place to place and living with different people. I want to see, one of the things that I think is wrong with the country today, and when it comes to our foster care system is totally effed up. There is no such thing as, because we do not have, I think the last orphanage in the United States closed down 50s or in the 60s. So we do not have orphanages per se in the United States anymore. What we have is the foster care system because the government finds it to be more efficient and more beneficial for children. Because when you're in an orphanage situation, you're basically a number. You're not an individual. Whereas the foster care system takes care of that, but it also, what it does is you get some messed up foster parents. You get people who are, who are looking just to get money from having these kids in foster care, and they get money from that, and they basically screw the kids up even more. I have a lot of I really hope that Michael Orr isn't out for money, because the Tuohys really didn't need money. Sean Tuohy is a what do you call that when you take your you own chain restaurants or whatever? He owns a chain of like Taco Bells and Kentucky Fried Chickens and stuff like that. Before Michael Orr even came into the picture, the Tuohys didn't need money. And so I look at this, and this story, just what it does to me is that it really exposes a lot of ugliness that's out there. Michael Orr was not, he bounced around from different, like I said, from different foster care to foster care to foster care to foster care to foster care. And you guys have went to school with plenty of people who have been in the foster care system. I've seen, like I said, I've taught for such a long time, and I see we have, and I can't mention names, but we have this one family in our district who, in my opinion, they are one of the best foster, and this family has had literally, since I've been at Clopton, I've known them to, they do a lot of younger foster care, and they have and they take great care of the kids, and but at the same time, I've also seen people who have 3-room apartments in the States, like, okay, we'll place them there, and and I've literally been in these places, and it smells like cat poop in there, and it's just, to me, I don't know. What have you? What's your guys' thought? What's your thought on what you've seen? And maybe Travis, you were kind of talking about we were talking about this before the podcast. I don't know if Travis can talk right now or not, but
yeah, I can.
Yeah, we were talking about this before. Why don't you say what you were talking about? Just like the state of some of these. How some of these kids, even in the regular homes, are being. What you noticed? You said you were in Home Depot or whatever, and you were seeing kids.
I've noticed where I live, um it's a little different because it's kind of a higher income area. So I noticed it's a lot of like kids between the age of like, I'd say as low as 12 years old, from like 16, 15, not quite driving yet, but like that teenage years. And like, man, they're always just like, there's like a lot of like strip malls and like outlets and stuff in our town here. And I see them like every day, if I'm on a weekend or something, they're just like walking around without their parents. Like they all got their phones and stuff. And it just seems like, I'm making assumptions here, but sometimes I see a lot of the same faces. It really seems like parents just dump these kids off in the morning, give them a credit card, and tell them just stay busy.
Have a good day.
It really does seem like that. Like I see it all the time, and like I'll go in the stores, and they're just like, kids are just, and this is different too, but like kids, I would say younger than 12 even, unattended, just running around in the stores being crazy, and it's like, where are the parents? Or like a whole group of them will come in the store. I'm talking like 6 kids will come in, no parents. And the Walmart, you could tell the Walmart employees are getting pissed because the kids are just screwing around. They're like, look, you guys can't be in here, like, and I'm seeing that more and more where I live here. And it seems like it's just a lack of supervision from parents, and parents that don't care, and just, like, hey, here, take the credit card, just, go stay busy, get out of the house for 4 hours or so,
And I think,
again, I'm making assumptions here, but that's what it seems like to me.
And I wanted to look at this from a couple of different angles, like I said before. One of the things that I did want to say, though, people are, from a teacher's perspective, there is a reason why there are a lot of teachers getting out of the business right now, because kids are becoming more difficult to deal with. Now, why is this happening? Well, you have number one. So you look at a Michael Orr case, when you have a kid who's in foster care, when you have a kid who's been bounced around from place to place to place to place. These are, we call these trauma, and in the adoption community we talk a lot about trauma. Okay? It's an understatement to say that Michael Orr was traumatized as a child. I mean, before the age of 11, I'm sure, I would almost guarantee that he saw things that, and I'm 49 years old, that I guarantee he's seen things and heard things and witnessed things that I will never witness as an adult. And as an 11-year-old child, they carry that, and they and they take that into their life. When you look at, and I worry about Michael Orr, because now 37 years old, I think he's been out of the NFL now for, heck.
Yeah, he's retired.
Yeah, he's been retired. I want to say, I know he played for the Ravens. He might have played for, I don't know why I'm thinking the Dolphins, the Ravens, Dolphins, and the Titans. I did you blow through your money? Are you now so hard up for cash as you're going this route?
Well, so this thing that they signed, it expired, right? They no longer have rights to him.
Right. They don't, and he's filing suit because what he wants to say is, you can no longer use my name. But when
I just saw he's promoting a book. I did like a quick little check on his Instagram. He's promoting a book, I guess, about his upbringing and stuff. So I don't know if it has anything to do with that. I mean, that's got to be a moneymaker, right?
Right. And I really, when
at the same time though, like this family, and maybe I missed something with like what's the conservativeship or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And maybe I missed something of what this actually is, but like, how exactly did that benefit him?
Okay,
Michael.
That I knew there was something I was leaving out there.
What would be the reason for him to sign that? Like, besides he's claiming to be being misleading, but like, what does it benefit?
When you look at the movie, so the movie basically, he asked the family, or the family asked him, "Hey, we want to adopt you," and that's the story that the Tuohys have went with. And, part of it was, to help him get, okay, so since they can't adopt him, he's over the age of 18. Okay, so now you have this wealthy family, Old Miss alums, okay, Old Miss in Mississippi, and they worth millions of dollars, okay. So on the surface, and this showed this in the movie too, on the surface, so now you have this millionaire family who gets this monster of a man and quote unquote adopts him at age 18. They put him through the Briarwood Christian school system, and he rocks them, with basketball and football. And they hire a tutor to get his grades up. And so I think the conservatorship was kind of a way for them to cover their butt, to say, okay, we didn't just go and recruit this kid off the street so we could pay his way through Ole Miss and get, and boost our alma mater. So since they couldn't adopt him, so the conservatorship.
But I got to interject there on that same, what you just said though, to cover their butt. But at the same time, they do a movie about him, where he doesn't benefit from the movie at all.
Yeah.
Right? So right. It kind of like,
that's his claim, and that's his claim too. But then
I guess there had to once. Yeah, I guess we don't know for sure.
The Tuohys claim that they put a money into a trust for him as well. And so, and I don't see.
Okay, I did not know that.
Well, see, and I just found that out this evening when I was doing some further. Let's see if I can find it up. The couple said in a statement on Tuesday that they have always been upfront with Orr about the conservatorship and have split any profit from the Blindside with him equally. Even recently, when Mr. Orr started to threaten them about what he would do unless they paid him an 8-figure windfall, and as part of the shakedown effort refused to cash the small profit checks from the Tuohys. They still deposited Mr. Orr's share into a trust account they set up for their son. So that was their statement today. So
Interesting.
So
That's interesting. Okay, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, but again, to me, that just it really does scream. It screams that here's somebody who is really screwed by the system, you know. And within this adoption, you have to really watch what happens within the adoption community anymore. In the early 2000s, and I'll bring this in as well. And I remember this article my wife had told me about, and I went and I looked it up, that Reuters did an investigation back in 2013, 14, somewhere in there. And I remember when we first were starting to adopt, or we were looking to adopt, before we even looked at China, we were looking at just domestic adoption, and Janine was really big into going out and just trying to find, support groups and stuff. And so there were a lot of support groups that she would get out of, because some of these support groups, you'd get in there and some of them were talking about kids that they had adopted. And they were basically saying, well, you can adopt ours, the one that we adopted. And to me, if that sounds strange, it is strange, because you're dumping off kids to people that have there's no, and you basically, in some states it's actually legal. You don't have to, go through court. You basically can just get a notarized statement saying, I, the aforementioned or the aforesigned person, hereby give my right to parenting of this child that we adopted to this said people. And within the adoption community, there's a lot of people who do under the table deals. There had been a documentary about a girl who, I can't remember the name of the movie. It was a documentary about this girl that this family adopted from Liberia. Okay. And she was 16 years old, and this couple was in their 30s, and they adopted this girl, and this girl was just too much for this couple to handle. And so what they ended up doing was they put it out in one of these groups that said, hey, we can't handle this kid, and they gave off this to this family that lived in Wisconsin. And Sean, I wish you could see a picture of this gal, because she's, I don't know if it qualifies as your dream girl or not, but this girl is probably every bit of 250, 300 pounds and sitting on the couch with a Diet Coke or whatever. But they didn't do any vetting of these people, and basically and this girl went missing until she was 21. And so from age 16, 21, she wasn't enrolled in school. And these people had their own kids taken away from them, who were taking this girl from Liberia. And when this girl basically got free at 21, she talks about stories about how she, her new parents would, invite them to come in the bedroom and lay with them while they were laying there naked and stuff like that. And it breaks your heart that stuff like this is happening. And
it's so fucked up.
It is. And,
that's ridiculous.
Right. And so, and what it is all about this is you have this group of people who, you have these quote unquote middlemen, okay, who call themselves adopt. You have to be licensed. You have to be a licensed adoption agency to be able to do a legal adoption. But then you get these people who do, who run these bulletin boards like, okay, we'll be the go-between, and the whole system, and then so when we started the adoption process, so this came about so we've had Briley now she's 12, so we got her right at 11 months, so we've had her for 11 years. So this is right when we started going through, we had to be And the federal government started cracking down on this because they're like, okay, we're going to shut all these sites down, Facebook groups. And this is before Facebook is what it is today, and you got all these Yahoo chat groups and everything. People were, I mean, it was almost, I don't want to say trafficking, but it, in a way, it kind of was trafficking, and it was, and I mean, it wasn't for any. I mean, like I said, my wife would get out of it. She's like, you can't believe what they're talking about in this group, and I just remember, but that stuff has long been gone. But what ends up happening is you have a generation of kids now, like Michael Orr, who, traumatized kids. And you pair that together with what's going on within our society, like the situation you were talking about, Travis, and you talk about, and what we have is a really difficult generation of kids who are confused and don't have any sense of direction. And one of the things I almost had our principal on, and I almost invited him on, but one of the things that we're doing to combat that, especially in the state of Missouri, is what they're calling character education. Let that sink in just for a second, boys. Character education. Okay? Now,
I mean, that's a reflection of the time we live in, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that, but yeah, I mean, when you have these kids, you have I think even, and I mean, you guys, it's safe to say now that you guys have been out, and I mean, there's a generation, half a generation has passed since you guys have been in school, because now you're both having kids, and you guys, that's why I say there's a half a generation that has passed since you guys have been in school. When you guys were in school, I mean, can you guys characterize what was expected of you when you were in school, and when you were in, I mean, what your parents expected of you and what school expected of you? I mean, how did you guys respond to those expectations?
I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I wasn't the best student. I mean, I got better as I got older, of course, but expectation was just, do what you're told, um, pass your classes, and graduate. My dad didn't have the highest expectations, but I was expected to, do what I was supposed to do, to
Mm-hmm.
respect authority, and he better not be getting calls from the principal saying that I was doing things I wasn't supposed to do. And if something like that was to happen, I know for a fact my dad would have taken action and I would have been disciplined for it. I
Sean,
respected my dad very much for that.
Sean,
Um,
Sean, what about you?
Sean, how was your experience with that?
No, I mean my parents were great. There was never really any kind of like, force feet to the fire or anything like that. Like, I mean, aside from being like a bit of a fucking goof, like I did my work, and like you know, I didn't graduated like with straight A's, but I didn't have any like D's or F's, um, except for, the science teacher that was more concerned about looking down 13-year-old girls' shirts than he was about actually fucking, grading my homework. So,
By the way, I saw him
um,
last week.
well, I'm surprised you didn't have to
Show him a little
call
bit
him through a window
of,
at the, Pike County Penitentiary, because
right.
that guy's a fucking goof.
So,
Anywho,
yeah, go ahead.
um, but no, it was never, it was a for me, it was always a level of, if you don't do things that are stupid, we don't need to helicopter you. Like, as long as you just kind of, do what you need to do, and get through, like, we support you, and we're here for you. So I didn't really have to, worry about anything like that.
Well, okay, so now let me take this to the next level, okay? And I want to get back to this issue. If you guys had a hardship that happened to you in your, let's talk about not in teenage years, but in your early life,
Mm-hmm.
you guys had a support system in place, right? I mean, you had I know that Travis, if you don't, how old were you when your parents split up?
They divorced when I was 5.
Okay, So when you went through that, if you don't mind me asking, what was in place to help you cope with all that, or
Um,
or do you
I just had a
remember?
lot of family support. My grandparents stepped up big time, on my mom's side.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a definitely a big support channel I had. It was just a lot of family. A lot of family was always there for me, just keeping me busy, keep me occupied.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that was probably the biggest support channel I had with that. Um, but I mean, a lot of the situation, I was so young, it didn't really. I would say the effects from something like that didn't really hit me until I was older.
Mm-hmm.
I would even say even today, there's still effects that I'm, going through with that
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Mm-hmm. And that's
But yeah, there was definitely stuff there for it, for sure.
but there again is that's the point that I'm wanting to get at, because if you look at a when you look at a Michael Orr case, when you look at a Briley Van Beber case, if you do not have proper support in place at the time, because you know the brain. When we brought Briley home, I learned so much about brain science that and I'm still learning a lot about brain science. It's remarkable what the brain, how complex the brain is, and with all the chemicals and endorphins that are introduced into the brain from different responses of different things, and if a need is not met, or something isn't, you know, and that's why I asked you about your grandparents or about your parents. In that time you said, hey, grandma and grandpa stepped up to the plate. You still have you're still, but you're a successful, thriving, adult now. You still have and we all have those issues, but at the same time you had that support play in place. When I look at Michael Orr, I see him as a boy who probably, we God knows what he went through until he was 11 when he became a ward of the state. I look at him now as a guy, and hats off to the Tuies. I'm glad that they helped him out, but at the same time, when you have a kid who's been traumatized like that, that's something I noticed from the movie. You don't just throw money at it. When you adopt a kid, you don't just say. And I've seen that. I'm the boys know some kids who I think was in your guys' class, maybe even, or younger or older. Parents who throw money at a adopted kid. Here, let's make this go away. We'll chase all your problems away with money.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
No.
We've seen that clearly.
Yeah, and I think that's been the case with Michael Orr, is
But there's
because
there's still what we don't know is like, they from I think what you said earlier, they claimed they were like totally transparent and like how this deal was going to go down, and like
right.
I have to wonder, like, was the movie really in his like best interest? Like, should the movie have really happened for him, being
I,
his background, like, and what he was dealing with? Like, was that really the best thing for him and his mental health, and
right.
like
And did somebody and
the stuff we're seeing now? Like, was it really necessary? Like, was this movie like, obviously, like you said, these people had money. That wasn't an issue before this movie, and it's definitely not an
well
issue
it
after. But like, was the movie necessary for them to set up a trust fund to benefit him?
so this is something I want to ask Sean about. So if and I don't know the case behind this. So in these quote unquote real life movies, is it usually, it's usually the people who are involved who write a story, then the story goes to, and then is that picked up by a agent or picked up by a company, or how does that usually work out?
Well, one of the interesting things about this particular case is so the movie came from a book. So the book
Right.
was written by like a family friend of the Tuohys, or at
Mm-hmm.
least like a guy that Sean Toohey went to high school with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the movie's loosely based off of a book, and as Hollywood loves to do, um, you know, I one of the funniest tweets I saw about this entire situation was like, one of the reoccurring themes in 90s 2000s Hollywood, they call it the white savior. Hollywood movie where it's like a white person doing something for, a person of color or a different race or minority character, and it's looks good for the white person. And so one of the funniest things I saw was like, if you've seen the movie, if you remember the movie, there's like a scene where like Michael's at football practice and his first football practice and doesn't fucking know what he's doing. Like just let people run by him. And that is, and then Sandra Bullock, walks through, the coach like, what are you doing? And Sandra Bullock walks through and, like slaps him on the chest, like, you block right here. Then someone like tweeted, was like, yeah, because fucking Sandra Bullock taught, Michael Orr how to play football. And, but, in the book, apparently, like Michael had already been playing football.
Yes,
like he had already played football. It's not like he was just some big giant freak athlete that they discovered on the side. That was not the case whatsoever. So that was that was Hollywood making it, this story that this kid had all this potential and he just needed the molding, and it was like, this kid already played football.
But I hate Hollywood when I do like real story.
Yeah. So, there's there's a bunch of those, like, based on a true story where it's very much just kind of like loosely based on a true story.
Right.
Some are more accurate than others, but in this case, they definitely they peppered it in. So as far as like, how does it work? Basically, I couldn't tell you like where it starts at. I definitely know like a presentation has to be done, a pitch has to be done, in the same sense. Like, it would make more sense if there was a successful book, because when you're taking a book and making it into a movie, you are already getting that crossover audience. People that know the book are then going to know the movie. So that would kind of help. Like you had 127 Hours, which was a movie that James Franco did. That was a book, that was a story that then became a movie, with James Franco, that I don't know if it won Academy Awards, but it was nominated for Academy Awards. So that Hollywood loves biopics. They love them. Austin Butler, rightfully so, was nominated for his portrayal of Elvis.
Yeah.
Eddie, I don't know why I'm going blank on his name. The guy that won the Oscar for, or was at least nominated for the Oscar for his portrayal of Freddie Mercury.
Rami
Malek.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rami Malek.
Yeah. And in the past, Will Smith with Ali, Jamie Foxx, Rachel, like the list goes on and on. People's portrayals of people will always be popular. And in this case too, like Sandra Bullock won the Oscar for her portrayal of Leanne Tui. So, I think that's part of why people have such a bad taste in their mouth for this situation, because a couple of things that, again, it's a matter of hearsay, like one person is saying one thing versus one side saying another, which we're not going to know until the actual court case. But Michael, stating that Sean and Leanne and their children profited off the movie, so that they made percentages based off what the movie paid out, versus Sean Tui has gone, literally the last 48 hours has gone out and said that they did not make money from the movie. They made money from the book, which would make sense, where, because they technically didn't write the book. But part of the deal that they got from the book might have been, and how what Michael's probably interpreting this and how the Tuies are probably interpreting this are, I would say there's a very good chance that when the book was written, there was an agreement made that the Tuies would maybe make a percentage based off of returns from the book or book proceeds. And then when the book, right, gets sold to, I don't know who made this, if it was Warner Brothers, Universal, I don't know who made it. But movie rights get sold, so odds are that the publishing company who sold the rights, right, they make a ton of money. There's a chance they could have passed that money down to the author, if that was part of the agreement. And then in that case, the author then could have given money to the Tuies if he felt that it was right. But as far as, did Fox actually provide money to the Tuohys? I don't know.
220.
That we're gonna find that out in
Cool.
court.
Yeah,
And
I'm really curious to hear the
Well,
kind
real
of
details come out.
what
backtracking to the beginning of this conversation when it comes to the conservatorship. What I had read, and I don't know how true it is, but part of the reason why they did it, with my understanding, was when Michael was graduating, because he had decided to go to Ole Miss. There was, and the movie kind of like briefly touches on this, but not at this level. And again, this is just a movie touching on it, so I don't know how accurate it was. But they kind of talk about how, because they were alumni to Ole Miss and he decided to go to Ole Miss, it would have created like a problem. It would have been like a conflict of interest. It would have been like, oh, they recruited this kid, they convinced him to go to Ole Miss.
Right.
Versus by doing the conservativeship, it meant that like he could go to Ole Miss and it wouldn't be considered like illegal recruiting or whatever they would have called it back in the day. There was a term for it, but now with the NIL, that kind of thing is gone. So I think that was the gist, was the family, like when Michael had made the decision to go to Ole Miss, they said, look, this is what we have to do, because we're alumni. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's kind of what I gathered from when the story first broke. That's kind of what I gathered from it. Um, at the beginning, because again, he was 18. But
That would
now
make sense.
it begs the question, if they've had because when it comes to these kind of agreements, and again, here's the thing. I I hate saying it like this because I don't want to take sides, but I can see it from both perspectives, where Michael, being 18, just signing a paper because like these are people that he loved, that he cared about, that he thought loved and cared about him, saying, hey, this is something that we have to do.
Right.
This is going to protect your name, your likeness. And again, that's the thing too, is like, they wanted to make sure that Michael, again, this is, in my opinion, these were wealthy people. These were people that kind of know the system a little bit. Could they have done this to make sure that he wasn't taken advantage of by an agent? This would have made it to where Michael couldn't have engaged in conversations with agents without them, and was that them having his best interest in mind? Maybe. Was that them having their interest in mind so that they got, I wouldn't say their piece of the pie, but made sure they had their foot in it to make decisions for him? Could have been. One of the big mainstreams conservative ships that we've talked about, or that's been in the like press recently, is like Britney Spears, right? Where she had hundreds of millions of dollars that she didn't have access to because her father regulated her bank accounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's like if the Tuohys had a conservativeship over Michael Orr and his NFL contracts, like, did they prevent him from spending his NFL money? Did they take his NFL money? Again, that's something that's going to probably be discussed in the actual the lawsuit. I read something interesting too, that because the big thing has been like, people are like, well, why didn't he bring this up 15 years ago? Why has this been a 15-year process? And the argument to that is, again, if this is something that he signed when he was 18, he probably didn't think anything of it, because again, what I guarantee you, how the conversation kind of went was probably like they're sitting in a room, right? And they're going over and they're handing him papers, and the Tuohys probably said to him something along the lines of like, this is, I wouldn't say, like, they might have said something like, this is us adopting you. This is bringing you to be a part of our family. Even though he was 18 and couldn't legally have been, this was their way of just saying to him, what they meant was, you're like, you have some of the same rules and benefits that you would have if we did adopt you.
Right.
You now have. But he might have taken it literally, and again, vice versa. It could have been the Tuohys going, oh no, we're going to have ownership to this kid's rights to make sure that we steer his ship going forward, getting into college, getting into the NFL.
Well, two things on that. The thing that really kind of raised a red flag to me was when Michael Orr said in this filing of this petition was that he was not aware that he didn't make any money from the movie until February of this year. Okay. To me, that's a major red flag because, and again, I'm not taking the Tui side. I'm not taking Michael Orr's side because it's a tragedy that this is going to have to play out like this. And I just did some research here just as you were talking, ESPN. So he made, in his NFL career, it's estimated that he's made about $34 million. He played with the Ravens, then the Titans, and then he finished his career with the Panthers.
He played like 8 or 10 seasons. He had a long NFL career.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that you can look at, like you said, and within the whole there and you did an excellent job there, Sean, of just laying it all out there. Okay, what the Latin term is cui bono, who benefits. All right. And so that's kind of when a court looks at that, they always look at cui bono as, okay, who was to benefit most here? Who was who? And I don't know. And then when you mentioned the whole white savior thing, and I remember reading a story on Vox.com. They're kind of a entertainment kind of website, and so they were, I had never heard that term before until I'd read that and you had mentioned that and I brought that up. But yeah, it is kind of a sad situation as to what has happened to him. And so I think that, I don't know, I wanted to approach this tonight, and like I said, it was a sensitive subject to me, and I wanted to, kind of just speak from, my last word on this, and then I'll let you guys say whatever you want to say. My last word on this is, I think that Michael Orr is still dealing with his early life, and I don't think he really got the help that he needed. Just, and then to add insult to injury, when you read some of his comments, that interviews that he did over the years, he hated the movie because he said, the movie made me look like this big, dumb oof, and people didn't recognize me for my playing ability in the NFL. And he said it affected him in the NFL. And so I think you have the issues that he had as a young child, and then you had the Tuies who probably, who knows if they got him counseling or not. And then now he's retired, and it's a sad situation all the way around. That's it for me.
Yeah, I really hope they remake it. They do the Blindside too, and then that's just the whole court case.
That's what we need, another Hollywood remake.
Yeah, no, don't even, no, not a remake, just a full blown sequel where we're just it's after all the fame and everything, and then it's just same actors get Sandra Bullock back, and he's like, I'm suing the shit out of you because that movie was garbage and you knew it was shit. I'm sorry, Michael.
I'm sorry. Oh my god,
that'd be pretty great.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a great time talking with you. Got to wrap things up as we get ready for bedtime and everything here in the Phillips household. But no, I'd love again to see everyone's thoughts and comments below. I know this week was great for us on socials, over 2,000 views on
thank you.
Our different platforms.
That was Travis being the rock star, by the way, last week. I put Travis in the rock star seat last week, and he got a lot of. That was a great. I should read some of those comments, but we actually had one of our listeners, Colby Coleman, was going back and forth with another guy, and it was a great discussion. So good job, Travis.
What did we talk about again?
Well, there you go.
Serious question. I don't.
That was the Jason Aldean. And you were talking about.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my love for Jason Aldean, you can't tell.
Yeah, that goes the show.
What did we talk about again? Oh man.
Well, gentlemen, again, to our listeners, be a friend, tell a friend. Yeah. I can't wait to talk to you guys, and I'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.